Hello, friends, and welcome back to Sunshine Strategies Radio. My name is Jen McMillan, your host of the podcast and founder of Sunshine Strategies, a nonprofit dedicated to helping Illinois communities downstate solve their local problems. So, today, I'm not going to be super original. Hi, friends, and welcome back to Sunshine Strategies Radio, where local news meets practical hope. I'm your host, Jen McMillan, founder of Sunshine Strategies, civic advocate, and neighbor right here in central Illinois. Each week, I try to slow down the noise of the world to a human pace and focus on what matters most: our families, our communities, and the future we're building together. Whether you're driving to school to drop off kids, finishing chores around the house, or catching a quiet moment with your coffee, Sunshine Strategies Radio is designed to keep you informed, grounded, and connected to the place we call home. Because strong communities don't happen by accident, they're cultivated by informed neighbors who care. And that starts right here. So let's dive into this week's episode. So, I'm not going to be super original today because, like everyone else and their cousin, I am thinking about the Super Bowl. And somehow it even ties into that terrible meme shared by Donald Trump. Everyone seems focused on the language of the halftime show or the lack of clothing on the dancers. But what if the real story of this halftime show was about the two places, Puerto Rico and rural America, that have both been told that they're a part of a family, but treated like they aren't? Puerto Rico and its rich, complicated history aren't widely taught in American classrooms. But I assure you, Puerto Ricans are our American cousins. They are American citizens. They can serve in our military. They pay the price of loyalty. But they have no voting representation in Congress, no vote for president, an entire community and culture that often feels like the big decisions about their lives are made in places far away by people who don't have a clue what real life looks like on the ground. Different town, same message. The government will take your labor, your resources, your loyalty, and your kids in uniform, but not your voice. That sounds a lot like how people in rural communities like mine feel too. We're told we're real America right up until we ask for decent hospitals, working roads, or schools that can just stay open. Then suddenly our problems are our fault and our voices are too small to matter. I think that's why the TPUSA halftime show irritated me even more. Because in no world do Kid Rock or Lee Bryce's versions of America feel widely representative. Yes, I too like to drive my truck and drink my root beer. But it's hard to enjoy that when fellow citizens are being assaulted and killed for the values I thought we all believed in. So when people sneer at Bad Bunny's halftime show, at the Spanish, at the dancers, at the whole vibe, I have to be honest. I didn't care that I couldn't follow every lyric. I'm sure I would have enjoyed it even more had I been more fluent in Spanish. But because my American experience was born and raised right here, it felt a whole lot more like that show than the Lee Bryce's saccharine country fantasy thing that happened on the other channel. At the Super Bowl halftime show, we saw workers playing in the fields, elders playing cards, small business owners trying to make it, people fixing power lines after the storm blows everything up. That felt American to me. So, to my fellow Americans who didn't feel included in the Bad Bunny halftime performance, I want to offer a friendly challenge to you. Go back and watch it again. This time, don't focus on the language you don't understand or the outfits you didn't like. Look at the people on that screen. Ask yourself if maybe, just maybe, The story of Puerto Rico on that stage has more in common with the story of your small town than you've been told. Because if both the island and the heartland are being treated like the help and not the family, then maybe the real fight isn't between their America and ours. Maybe the real fight is all of us together asking to finally be heard. And of course, I can't let you go without a news update for the week. And again, we're trying to really hone in on the counties that Sunshine Strategies serves. So that would be Macon, Piatt, DeWitt, Logan, McLean, and Christian counties. So let's begin our news this week with a story that reminded me just how quickly an ordinary day can change and how powerful resilience really is. Back in February of 2017, Chris Moore, a truck operator serving Macon County, was doing what roadside workers do every day, helping someone in trouble. While assisting a stranded motorist along Interstate 72 near Argenta, Chris was struck by a hit and run driver. The force of the crash was so intense that it bent a nickel sitting in his pocket, a tiny piece of metal twisted by a moment of chaos. And yet, Chris survived. Today, he continues sharing his story to remind drivers of something many of us forget when we're rushing from one place to the other. Move over, slow down, and pay attention. Here in Illinois, we have a move over law, which requires drivers to change lanes or reduce speed when approaching emergency and service vehicles stopped on the roadside. This isn't just a rule, it is a quiet agreement that we make with one another to say that we value human life over convenience. And this is a really great time to remind your kids too. Ask them, why do you think helpers on the road need extra space? Our kids understand fairness instinctively, and someone helping always deserves protection. So if you get a chance, go to WAND. They've got a great story about Chris Moore. His story is not just remarkable, it's instructive. Communities stay strong when we remember that safety is something that we create together. And now, let's jump into some civic engagement. There is an election coming up on March 17th where voters across much of central and southern Illinois will help choose their party's nominees for the 15th Congressional District, where I live here in Macon County. If you've ever wondered how to explain a primary election to someone like their five, try this. Um, it is like a team choosing its captain before the big game. Each political party selects one candidate, and those candidates face off in the general election later in the year. So, why does this matter? Why is there a primary? So, whoever wins the primary, both in the Democratic and the Republican parties, will get to set the conversation about agriculture policy, rural health care, infrastructure. In short, these are the people that will be having conversations during the general election that ripple into everyday family life. There are four Democratic candidates and three Republican candidates running in Illinois' 15th congressional district. And just earlier this week, I recorded interviews with all four of the Democratic candidates. Paul Davis, who is a veterinarian from Collinsville, and he centered his campaign around a science based decision making model and supporting rural communities. Kyle Nudo is a small business owner and a union member from Alton, Illinois, and he's emphasizing economic opportunity and healthcare access. Randy Raley is a retired radio personality and is focused on revitalizing rural America and strengthening family farms. And last but not least, Jennifer Todd, a nurse from Edwardsville, brings frontline healthcare experience and has highlighted community engagement as a priority. I really enjoyed these conversations. I do apologize at the audio quality as I continue to learn. My recording will improve. So we're now debating on reaching out to our three Republican candidates for individual interviews. That, of course, includes Mary Miller, our current office holder, who's seeking another term. Judy Bolby, a challenger from Riverton, who's positioned herself as offering a fresh perspective. And I apologize in advance if I mispronounce this name. Ryan Tebergy, an information security professional from Springfield, and he's campaigning on transparency and community focused solutions. So consider bringing your kids over and having them talk to you about the candidates while you research. And we just have to remember that democracy is less like a thunderstorm and more like gardening. It grows best when tended to regularly. All right. And moving right along to our community spotlight for this week. Excuse me. We've got Neighbors Building Neighbors in Piatt County. There, the Association for Home and Community Education, often called ACE, is already hard at work in 2026, organizing meetings, educational programming, and service efforts. Groups like this rarely make splashy headlines, yet they form the connective tissue of small town life. They teach practical skills, they support families, and create belonging. Sociologists sometimes use a phrase called social infrastructure. It simply means the places and organizations that help people form relationships, like libraries and extension offices, volunteer groups, and civics clubs. When those groups are strong, communities can weather change far better. So, if you're looking for a subtle yet powerful way to strengthen your town, participating in even one local organization can multiply your sense of connection. And as for children, watching adults invest time locally sends a powerful signal. We don't just live here, we care for this place. And as we start to wrap up the episode, you will notice that it's been a little warmer this week. Central Illinois is settling into what meteorologists call politely seasonal conditions. You expect cold temperatures, maybe snow, and really frigid mornings. But days like today, where the high is 44, remind us that we're edging closer and closer to spring. The light is lasting longer, seeds are quietly waking, and our farmer friends know this well. February is less an ending than a preparation. And for our closing thought, this week I've got just a few wise words. Communities aren't just built in dramatic moments like Super Bowl Sundays. They're often shaped in those everyday choices. Slowing down for a roadside worker, learning about a primary election where you may not have voted in the past, joining a local group, learning about your family's history. Small acts repeated over time become culture, and culture is what carries a place forward. Here at Sunshine Strategies Radio, our hope is simple: to help Central Illinois families feel informed, connected, and quietly confident about the future we're building together. Stay warm, friends. Go see some sunshine. Stay curious and look out for one another. We'll see you next week.